Hey, gentlemen, thank you for listening to my YouTube channel, The Brotherhood. The Brotherhood is a men's ministry of Sulphur Springs Baptist Church located in Warrenton, North Carolina. Our men's ministry meets on the last Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. If you happen to be listening to this and you live in the area, by all means, come and visit one of our meetings. What will you find? You will find a small group of men getting together talking about Jesus Christ and ways in which we can spread His kingdom here on earth. We always have food, fellowship, and an all-around fun time. Hey guys, my name is Pastor Seth. I am the pastor of Sulphur Springs Baptist Church, and in this episode, I want to ask the question, what does it mean to be a man? We are, after all, a men's ministry, and this is, after all, a YouTube channel that is primarily directed towards other men. So, what does it mean to be a man? In answering this, I think it is best to first discuss the incorrect answers, and this is something I often do from the pulpit. So, what are some incorrect answers we can give in asking the question, what does it mean to be a man? Well, there are some who would say that a true mark of masculinity is measured by your profession, your work, what you do for a living. Indeed, this is a question as often asked when you first meet someone. People often approach me, so Seth, what is it that you do? And we have got so enamored with what we do for a living that it becomes our identity. Well, I am a pastor, or I am a school administrator. And we go further than this. The more money you make, well, that makes you more of a man. If you're a six-figure salary type of guy, well, you're just a real masculine individual. Or there are certain professions that are seen as more masculine than others. If you're a soldier, you're masculine. You're a fireman, you're masculine. Policeman, masculine. If you happen to be a male nurse, not so much. If you're a secretary, no, you're not that strong of a man. Then others would go on further than saying, well, it's just your profession. They would also add to it that you are more of a man if you are given to sexual conquest. In other words, if women find you attractive and you are capable of seducing many of them, then of course you are a man. Now, we as Christian men, we understand that these first two criteria, profession and sexual conquest, are not marks of masculinity. That's just the culture's way of thinking. But this third one I'm going to mention might throw you for a loop. What about fatherhood, right? I mean, it is an admirable role. I am a father, and I appreciate good fathers out there. Men who raise children, love their wives, and protect and provide for them. Well, they're certainly men, right? Certainly, if you want to be a masculine man, a true man, you must be one who is a father, who is married, and works hard for his family and provides. But there is a problem with all these, the profession, sexual conquest, and fatherhood. There's a problem with all these if these are truly the mark of a man. Because here's the rub. Jesus does not neatly match any of these descriptions. When we think about profession, well, think about what Jesus did. Jesus was a roaming rabbi, and it was unclear as to how he made his money or how much money he had. Did he perform odd jobs? Maybe. Donations? Probably. I think he relied on the kindness of people. Now, and some will go on and say, well, he was a carpenter, right? Like his stepfather, Joseph. Now, oftentimes, I've heard Sunday school teachers or pastors really fixate on this because they want Jesus to appear rugged. They want him to be a man's man. He worked with wood and he had calluses on his hands. So don't think of Jesus as a sissy. They really wanted to make it clear that Jesus was a masculine individual. But the problem with this is that the scripture doesn't explicitly say that Jesus was a carpenter, although, and I'll admit this, most likely he was. It was very typical in that culture for a son to follow in his father's footsteps and take up his trade. However, the Bible doesn't seem to be overly concerned about this at all. The Bible doesn't seem to make it a big deal as to whether or not Jesus was a carpenter, and therefore we, as interpreters of the Bible, should not make it a big deal either. So by today's standards, Jesus would not have been seen as a successful professional individual. I would say that most people would think him as a failure. Now, I think sexual conquest also can be easily ruled out as a masculine trait. After all, Jesus was born of a virgin and died as a virgin. There is no reason to believe that Jesus had any type of romantic relationship with any woman at all. He never sexually touched a woman. And if that is the case, well, Jesus was not, biologically speaking, a father. He never tousled the hair of his oldest son, or wrestled with his kids on the floor, or danced with his daughter at her wedding. So, while it's true one must be a man in order to be a father, one must not be a father in order to be a man, or otherwise we would have to exclude Jesus out of manhood and masculinity. So if it's not profession, if it's not sexual conquest or fatherhood that makes Jesus the perfect man that we are to look up to, what was it about Jesus that made him so masculine? What was it about him that men could look up to? And I think the answer is this. I think it was Jesus' sacrificial desire to direct men towards God the Father that made him masculine. And of course, his sacrificial desire was so strong that he laid down his life for the sins of fallen man. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that Jesus exclusively taught men. When I say that he was directing men towards God the Father, I'm not saying that he only spoke to men. He had female followers, and he engaged them. But what we see in the New Testament, I think anyway, we see a pattern developing inside the church. That as the church grew and got a little bit more organized, there was this pattern in which men taught men and women taught women. I think this is strongly implied in Titus chapter 2. And furthermore, in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12, it's very clear that Paul did not want women to be authoritative teachers of men inside the church. So in other words, it wasn't women's job to train men in the ways of godliness. That's what men are supposed to do. That's what we as men today inside the church want to do, is to direct other men towards the God-man, Jesus Christ. See, there's a lot of things I want to be remembered for, but some things are not that important to me. I don't want to be remembered as a man who can bench press 250 pounds, or be remembered as a man who valiantly fought in war. I want to be a man who is known for discipling and training other men in the way of Jesus Christ. I believe this to be the height of masculinity. Now consider the words Paul said to Timothy. And if you're not familiar with the Bible, Timothy was an apprentice, a son in the faith, if you will. Paul was his spiritual father. And this is what he writes to Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1 and 2. He says, "You then, my child, be strengthened by the grace that in Christ Jesus. And what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men, who will be able to teach others also." This letter is significant. Paul, the author, will die shortly after he writes this letter. If you read the letter, it suggests that Paul was tried in court and found guilty of some crime, and he suspected that his death was soon. He is lonely and wants his friend to come and visit him while he's in prison before he gets too cold. But keep this in mind. One of the last things Paul wants his protege to remember is that he is to pass on what he has learned to others so that they will in return pass it on to others. Paul wanted the perpetuation of the Christian faith, and this is done by men molding other men. And this is the goal of our men's ministry, the Brotherhood, at Sulphur Springs Baptist Church. So practically, what can this look like? Well, I think the answer can vary, but I can tell you what I am personally doing in my life. There are 4 young men who are in my youth group that I pulled them out and I meet with them twice a month in order to teach them Christian theology, teach them about Christian spiritual disciplines. And what I'm hoping to do with them is, of course, lead them to Christ, although I strongly suspect that these I'm working with, most of them are already believers, but in hopes of seeing them come to faith, become future Sunday school teachers, deacons, lay leaders, so that they can become churchmen. And I think that there needs to be, overall in all our churches, a restoration of the lost art of teacher and apprentice relationships. I think we need to go beyond sitting in classrooms. While I think Sunday school classrooms are important and Bible studies are important, I think what we need is to have individuals rise up and say, so-and-so in my church is my responsibility. I'm going to train so-and-so, and they can follow me, and they can trust me because I follow Christ. And one of these days, they're going to do the same thing with someone else. So if you are a man who has been in the faith for a long time, and you're well versed in the Bible and you're disciplined, and that you love other people inside the church, I think you need to take someone under your wing and help them grow. And of course, this is not a practice that's unique to men. This is something that women can do as well. Older women training younger women. And you don't have to be a professional to do that. You don't have to make lots of money. And the boys that I work with, well, they don't care if I'm a stud or not. Single men can do this. One does not have to be married. Paul, we all suspect, was single. Again, Jesus Christ was single, never married. So the question I'm asking you is this: who are you training? Who are you discipling? I pray that we as Christian men rise up and train the next generation of men. Well, guys, I want to wrap this up. I thank you again for listening. If you like it, like it. If you want to comment, by all means comment. Share it around. Let this YouTube channel grow. The more that people interact with it, the more I'm inclined to produce more. So as always, may we as the men of God direct other men towards the God-man, Jesus Christ. Have a blessed day.